This year's Kinder Houston Area Survey is out this morning. It's the nation's longest-running study of its kind, examining Houstonians' attitudes, beliefs, and experiences. I'm Craig Cohen. Today on Houston Matters, we dig into the results with Ruth Lopez-Turley and Daniel Potter from Rice University's Kinder Institute for Urban Research.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is a production of Houston Public Media with support from Baylor College of Medicine.
Also this hour, we welcome your dog and cat care questions for veterinarian Dr. Lori Teller. Send them now to talk@houstonmatters.org or text 713-440-8870. Plus, another week, another Houston Astros pitcher on the shelf. This time it's Hayden Wesneski, and the starter is done for the year, needing Tommy John surgery. We discuss what the Astros do next. We'll start with a news update from NPR and News 88.7. Stay with us. This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Good morning. Coming up this hour, the Astros lose another starting pitcher to Tommy John surgery. Is it time to rethink how pitchers are developed and used? We discuss. Also, your dog and cat care questions for veterinarian Dr. Lori Teller. Email talk@houstonmatters.org or text your questions now to 713-440-8870. But first, for more than 4 decades now, the Kinder Houston Area Survey has measured the attitudes, beliefs, and experiences of Houstonians. It is the longest-running study of its kind, examining one of the most important metropolitan regions in the country. This year's survey is out this morning, and in its 44th year, it's documented the responses of more than 10,000 residents from Houston's 3 largest counties, Harris, Fort Bend, and Montgomery. Ruth Lopez-Turley is the director of Rice University's Kinder Institute for Urban Research. Daniel Potter is director of the Institute's Houston Population Research Center. The pair tell Houston Matters producer Brenda Valdivia why they now include Fort Bend and Montgomery counties in the annual survey that for many years focused just on Harris.
These counties have been growing a lot. This area has experienced a lot of population growth, especially over the last 15 years. It's Fort Bend and Montgomery counties, and we've really been amazed at the tremendous growth of this area, especially in comparison to some of the other large metros across the country. Dallas is one of those that has also been growing quite a bit, but then these other large metros like the New York metro, that's only grown by like 3%, and then the LA metro has actually shrank by a little bit, and the Chicago metro has also shrunk. So, Houston really stands out in many ways.
1 in 5 Texans live in these counties. We are one of the most diverse regions in the country. That's one of the things we love bragging about, our diversity and the food of our diversity. That kicks in a lot. But how do these 3 counties compare? We're broken down by race and ethnicity. And is there big income differences? Ruth, let's go with you.
We have a lot of folks that are foreign-born, actually. So like 1 in 8 in Montgomery County are born outside the U.S., but in Fort Bend and Harris County, it's 1 in 4.
Yeah, 25%.
Which is really incredible if you think about it. I mean, that's a lot of folks that are born outside the U.S. So I would say that's a big part of the diversity, in addition to the variation in race and ethnicity. But I just wanted to start off by talking about the variation in terms of foreign-born.
Well, and I think sometimes diversity could almost be taken as a granted at this point. It just feels natural for this area. But think about, hop in the time machine, go back 1960s, 1970s. What were we? We were white and black.
Yep.
That was
primarily.
There was practically zero Asian population back then. It was largely a biracial community, white, black being the primary ones.
Right.
And exactly as you're talking about, Ruth, flash forward to today, Fort Bend County. It is one of the only counties in the country where it is a quarter Asian, black, Hispanic, white.
Yep.
In Harris County, you don't have a majority. It's just a plurality. Even talking about Montgomery County, which it is still a majority white community, but it's 67% white. It's 20-some% Hispanic. Black and Asian residents making up the balance there. It really is this amazing combination of diversity here.
So as a percentage, we were just talking about this earlier today, as a percentage, Asian Americans are growing the fastest.
Quadrupled.
Of all the groups.
Since
1980.
Since 1980, the population has quadrupled.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Proportion. Sorry. We're going to nerd out here for a second, if you don't mind.
As a percentage, yes.
we are public media. That's what we're here for.
Wonderful. We're among friends there, right? So when we're talking about the proportion, what we're talking about is like 1980, less than 2% of the population would have been Asian in this area, and now it is approaching 9%. And so that's the sort of quadrupling just from a percentage perspective, to say nothing of the actual numbers. Because to the point we started with, we're talking about an area that has grown just in the last 15 years, 1.5 million people. That's larger than a lot of other major cities just simply are. We've grown by that much.
There have been other studies that show that we have something called the Houston Arrow, where there is a higher density of economic prosperity, where there are better schools, where the Galleria itself is located. And this is from the west side of downtown Houston, expanding out into, I believe, the Katy area. Now, are there any demographic changes in this area too? Are more people being included? Is this area becoming more diverse, or is it, generally staying the same?
Yeah, I mean, so we have to acknowledge there are struggles with racial segregation in the Houston area. There's struggles with class segregation in the Houston area. These are sort of what helps to produce, when you talk about something like the Houston Arrow, it gives rise to those types of demographics. Now, on the one hand, you do continue to see a wide variety of people moving into the area. It is not just the wealthy coming into town. It is not just a particular race, ethnicity coming into town, and they're finding places to live. Now, we were talking about earlier, it's not Center City that folks are coming into, right? They're looking at some of those outward counties. And so while that Houston Arrow will sometimes flash up in some of our research, increasingly, some of it is beginning to blur a little bit.
What are new areas of prosperity where people are seeing income raises?
Well, we can start by talking about there are very different socioeconomic levels when we go from one county to the next. So in Harris County, for example, your median household income is somewhere in the mid-70s. When you drop south down into Fort Bend County, that median income is going to hop up above six figures into the $100,000 range. And when you get up into Montgomery County, it's somewhere in between. But talking about changes that have been going on, I'm going to get my directional compass in my head correct here. So thinking eastern Montgomery County. So if you're driving up and down 5969, you're passing by Humble, you're hopping into Montgomery County. Go back in time to just the 20-teens and the median income taking place. So New Caney, sorry, I'm just dropping city names at this point. New Caney is kind of thinking that area.
Shout out to New Caney.
There you go. Built some new listeners right there, right? So that space went from having a median household income of around $60,000 in about 2015 to north of $80,000 by 2023. This is an amazing economic growth that was taking place in a small period of time. It was largely driven by the population growth that was taking place in that area.
But one thing to add about income, and it's very important to talk about median income, of course, but it's also important to throw in income inequality. And because we have a lot of income inequality in this area, and really in all three of these counties, it's estimated that the top 20% of earners make about half of the total income earned in our region. So imagine that. So the top 20% of earners make about half of the total income earned.
So just to be visual, let's picture a giant pie.
Yes,
okay.
A pie graph.
Delicious.
Imagine a pie graph, right? So half of that total income earned is earned by the top 20%. You want to guess how much?
So already half my pie is gone.
Yes.
Okay.
You want to guess how much of that total income is earned by the bottom 20%?
Oh, no. What is
I'm putting you on the spot. You want to guess?
I'm guessing 5%.
It's 3 to 4%, and this is across our
too
three
little
counties.
pie.
It's a huge difference. So there's a lot of income inequality that we also have to think about when we think about income and how income is changing. But there's a lot of inequality in our region.
So, speaking of that, we're increasingly likely to be entering an economic recession, possibly by the summer, according to many economists. How many did respondents respond to questions like how well their own households are doing financially. Ruth, let's go with you.
Well, a lot of folks are very concerned about the economy. In fact, the economy was one of the top 3 most frequently cited as the biggest problem in our area. We often ask, what's the biggest problem facing the Houston area today? And the economy was mentioned as one of the top 3. So I know that a lot of folks are understandably very concerned about the economy. And I would add in particular, because the cost of housing also came up, especially in Harris County, came up as one of the top 3 biggest problems in our area. And I'm connecting that to the economy because what we're seeing is that earnings have just not kept up with the cost of housing. And so that's a related concern that a lot of folks are really talking about.
Well, I just wanted to build on that because, in addition to raising the economy as, this biggest problem that our area is facing, when we're asking folks, hey, think about your economic circumstances. Are you just getting by? Are you sort of paycheck to paycheck? Are you doing okay? Or, hey, you've won the game and you're doing pretty good for yourself. You're talking about 3 out of 10 residents are saying that they're just getting by. And so that sort of signals that for many of our neighbors, many of our residents, there is this paycheck to paycheck sort of existence that they're experiencing right now. And again, most of this data was collected back in January, February. And so as we've watched the economy doing what it is doing right now, folks that may have already been feeling that financial pressure are only going to be experiencing that more intently.
So for folks in the greater Houston area, you say they're getting by paycheck to paycheck. Is this including an amount of people letting you know how much are in their savings, or are they literally just at the precipice?
So if we can pivot for a hot second to some of the research that the Kinder Institute's been putting out, we asked this question of financial security in terms of if you were to lose your primary source of income, how long would you be able to make it paying for day-to-day expenses from, how much do you have in your savings? And about a third of residents did say, hey, you know what, I've got 3 months or more. And that was our definition of financial security. Another third of residents said, okay, I don't quite have the 3 months in my savings, but I've got 1 to 2 months. And so we talk about that as sort of that approaching financial security piece. That last third, though, we're talking about they don't have enough in savings to pay for their day-to-day expenses for 2 weeks. We're not talking about next month's rent. We're barely even talking about next week's grocery bill. These are folks that are genuinely experiencing paycheck to paycheck from 1 week to the next. How am I going to make this work? A third of our community members.
And then, of course, if anything goes wrong, that's just assuming that things are functioning, more or less normally. But if anything goes wrong, if an unexpected emergency takes place, then that's when people really get scared. And we learned through the Kinder Houston Area Survey this year that in our 3 counties, anywhere from 34 to 45% of residents say that they could not handle a $400 emergency, which, as we all know, that can happen pretty easily to anyone.
That's a car, that's a light bill.
You get a flat tire.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So almost half of Harris County residents say that they are not equipped to handle a $400 unexpected emergency.
And we can break that down going back to our economic inequality. We can look at how does that break down? Because we're talking overall, right? So if you look at that statistic for folks that are making less than $25,000, 70% do not have enough money in savings to come up with if they have that $400 expense. If folks are making between $25,000 and $50,000, it's 60%. If folks are making between $50,000 and $75,000, and that's our bread and butter, that's our median household income for our Houston area more broadly, it's 33%. That's 1 in 3 households.
Ruth Lopez Turley and Daniel Potter from Rice University's Kinder Institute for Urban Research talking with our Brenda Valdivia about the Institute's annual Houston Area Survey just out this morning. Still to come, more from the pair, including what this year's survey finds Houstonians consider to be the area's biggest challenges as Houston Matters continues. This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. More now from our conversation about the results of the newest Houston area survey just out this morning from Rice University's Kinder Institute for Urban Research. Ruth Lopez Turley and Daniel Potter from the Institute tell Houston Matters producer Brenda Valdivia that despite many challenges our region faces, this year's survey finds Houstonians place a lot of emphasis on what makes Houston great.
Overall, people love Houston, I would say. Yes. I mean,
shout out to H-Town. We're
yes,
doing it.
Absolutely. I mean, people, of course, recognize that we have serious challenges, but people are aware of them and they want to address them. Now, having said that, they tend to be more positive among higher income residents and less positive, understandably, among lower income residents. But even then, if you look at the distribution overall, people are quite positive about our amenities. We've asked about our infrastructure, about our public transportation.
No, well, hold on. I hear you laughing.
I'm so sorry.
It feels a little,
laughing.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah. Well, public transportation, air and water quality, those,
education,
overall general
job opportunities,
higher education, exactly. Like overall, like the ratings landed in the fair and good range. Now, of course, there are a few that said that they're excellent, and then a few, although not insignificant, that said that they're poor. They gave them poor ratings. So yes, there's that. But overall, most of the ratings landed in that fair or good range.
And in particular, sorry, the reason you got me chuckling there was you pulled out infrastructure and public transportation. Let's focus on this real fast, right? When we're talking about the culture, positive ratings. When we're talking about large scale, super positive, 9 out of 10.
Ooh.
Good, very good, excellent.
Yeah.
Loving the culture here in Houston. Large-scale events, sporting events, concerts, small-scale events, community theater, live music, perhaps around town. People are loving these things, right? Yeah. Job opportunities, again, the majority of folks saying there are good, very good, or excellent job opportunities.
Where else can you see a lowrider in the morning and the opera by night? That's all I'm saying.
It's a bumper sticker waiting to get made right there. But when we ask about things like infrastructure, when we're asking about things like public transportation, air and water quality, that is where you start to see some of the, I don't call them cracks in the facade, but it's where you begin to identify those challenges and issues that the Houston area is very much aware of in many ways, grappling with, but also where you see residents time and time again saying we're not quite hitting the mark on those things.
We are known as a car city. So lots of parking lots, lots of driving, that also affect folks' opinion of Houston too. Ruth, let's go with you.
We looked at the commute times in all 3 counties, and we learned that they're pretty high, especially in Fort Bend and Montgomery counties. 53% and 58% of workers in those counties have commute times of more than 30 minutes. Compared to a lower percentage in Harris County, which is about 46%. So it's still high in all 3 counties, but especially high in Fort Bend and Montgomery counties in terms of the percentage of workers that have commute times of more than 30 minutes.
So the thing I'm thinking about is biggest problems. Fort Bend,
traffic.
Montgomery County, number 1.
Traffic. Yeah.
Now, has this changed anyone's opinion about moving, let's say, back to Harris County and closer inside the Beltway 8? Because we are such a sprawling city. Has anybody gone on these commutes and said, all right, I'm done with the burbs, I'm done with the outer areas, I need to get back into the city?
So there's like natural, cyclical city moving in, moving out processes that kind of just get underway over the span of decades. I think one of the things, however, that's fascinating about the Houston area is hop in that car, start driving, head out to the Katy, head up to Conroe, down into Sugarland or Pearland, or drop down into these other different spaces that are all over the area. You're not pulling into residential communities. You're pulling into micro cities. You're pulling into these areas that have the business, they have the real estate, they've got the healthcare, they've got the activities and the events in them as well. And so there's something kind of interesting about Houston where while there are a bunch of people on the road for a bunch of time, there's also a degree to which people are able to live their lives where they are. And there's not the constant, okay, I got to get up and drive into Houston because that's where everything is. The area has activities, entertainment, culture going on everywhere.
Now, we're looking at the biggest challenges of our region. There are some variations depending on where respondents live. For the third year in a row, Harris County residents cited crime as their biggest challenge, despite some other pretty significant challenges that Houstons face. Daniel, what are Houstonians thinking about crime this time?
Yeah, it is our third straight year, and we do see a year-over-year drop in terms of the crime rate being reported out. And so you would sort of anticipate that perhaps that would remove that from the top of people's thinking. But we can also note that despite that decline over the last year, that Harris County still has the highest overall crime rate of all of the most populous counties in the state.
So in terms of, what kind of crimes is being reported, is it violent crime? Is it, break-ins? Is it, what level of crime are we looking at?
When we're looking at HPD's data in particular, we're looking at all different types of crimes there. So we're looking at things from your aggravated assaults, you're looking at things as well as about property crime and also motor vehicle. And for that last one, that's where you still see there being relatively high numbers in the county. And so one of the things we've thought about is that while you have seen sort of tick downs in things like your more violent crimes, it's not necessarily those high profile crimes that maybe are on the forefront of people's thinking, but it is that experience where that car is getting broken into, that property is getting vandalized, or it's going missing. And these could be in some ways kind of small scale, but they feel so personal. And so it pulls it right back into the forefront of people's thinking about, the thing that I'm concerned about.
But crime is weird in that it's just like, as Dan said, that it's been going down over time recently, and yet the concern is very persistent. And it was the number one problem in Harris County, and it was like the number two problem in Fort Bend and Montgomery County. So it's
which have demonstrably lower.
Yes, lower crime rates. So it doesn't align really well. The actual crime rates don't align really well with the concern over crime and safety. And yet we think it's really important to continue to monitor our perception of crime, because that's what affects our behavior.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Brenda Valdivia. I'm speaking with Ruth Lopez Turley and Daniel Potter of the Kinder Institute for Urban Research about the just released 44th Houston Area Survey. It's the nation's largest running study of any metro area's economy, population, life experiences, beliefs, and attitudes. Speaking of perception, I do wonder, is our perception as Houstonians towards, the Houston Police Department and sheriffs, has that changed? Is that relationship also in flux as less crime is being reported?
I mean, one of the things that we saw, I'm thinking about the bias and prejudice motivated crimes report we put out last year, where we were asking residents about experiences they've had with a variety of different harassment, verbal abuse, property damage. And at the end of people reporting about their experiences, one of the things we asked was, did you report it? Did you actually tell someone? And the majority of people said, yes, I reported it. But then when we said who, they said families and friends. It wasn't necessarily the police that they were reporting.
My cousin's taking care of this. Is that?
Well, I think sometimes it's I just have to tell somebody this happened to me. And that makes a ton of sense from an emotional and social connection level. But it also raises that challenge where the person you're probably sharing that with, they don't have the resources or the training to kind of work with you and process with you on what you may have gone through. And then when we asked, well, why not report it? Over and over and over again, there was a lack of trust. I don't trust that anything is going to get done. I don't trust the police. And so it does raise some concerns there around how do you address this issue with crime and safety when you're not sure that one of the key mechanisms to that has the kind of community ties that might help resolve some of that.
And that varies also. Those perceptions vary by neighborhood area.
Oh, yeah.
Just about to ask. Yeah. Are there areas that are we don't talk to the police? And others that, yes, we will, no matter what. Is that a challenge that you
varies
see?
a lot. Yes, I don't remember off the top of my head. Do you, Dan, remember specific neighborhood areas that had?
So think Eastern Houston, right?
Yeah.
I mean, without naming any particular neighborhoods, when we look at our data, you see a lot of this concentrated on eastern parts of Houston. And to a degree, it's those places where you can look and go, yeah, there's a history of challenges there. between police and residents that's going to create that. This is where you start to have opportunities for conversations about peaceful, civil individuals that maybe are not police per se, but that they are sitting there still working with communities to restore, rehab, and hopefully sort of recreate a level of trust and community policing, if you will, so that you do sort of have that social meets the legal in terms of creating safer environments for everybody.
Now, we've talked about the pie, the driving, the distance, the crimes, the areas of population. What do people like about Houston?
Well, they're the top three. Top three are the most frequently cited reasons for why people love being in Houston or what they love about Houston. The first is
the people.
The diversity of the people. Absolutely. That's by far, I think that's what most people really love about Houston. The second is
the economic opportunities. And by that, what we're talking about are the jobs and the opportunities that exist there, as well as the cost of living. That, having lived here for a second myself, it has gotten more expensive, and I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. Right. But take a trip, head to Austin, head out of state, go pick up a menu in other cities that might exist on the coasts, the east or west coast. That meal that we get here for $15 and we go, daggone it, that's an expensive burger. That's a $25 burger at other places.
Sticker shock is real. I did find a $20 Shiner in San Francisco, and I wanted to leave right then and there.
Yes, things are still relatively less expensive here than other places, even though costs are going up.
And the third big bucket is activities. If you want to do it, it's here. And those activities are cultural events. Those activities are sporting. They're concerts. It's all here. And people recognize that. And so, again, it's the people, the economic opportunities, the activities.
Ruth Lopez Turley and Daniel Potter from Rice University's Kinder Institute for Urban Research talking about the Institute's 44th annual Houston Area Survey just out this morning. They spoke with Houston Matters producer Brenda Valdivia. More findings will be discussed at the Institute's annual luncheon at the Hilton Americas Houston today at noon. And just ahead, we welcome your dog and cat care questions for Houston area veterinarian Dr. Lori Teller. Call or text 713-440-8870 or email talk@houstonmatters.org. And stick around as Houston Matters continues. This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen.
Black and orange stray cat sitting on a fan. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. You can't scratch fever.
How much is that doggy in the window?
Jellicle cats, jellicle songs for jellicle cats, jellicle songs for jellicle cats.
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Once again, Houston Matters goes to the dogs and cats as we welcome your questions about the care and feeding of your canine and feline friends for veterinarian Dr. Lori Teller from the Meyerland Animal Clinic and Texas A&M University. Dr. Teller, good morning.
Good morning.
And we welcome any questions you have about the dog or cat companion in your life. You can call or text us at 713-440-8870. You can email us at talk@houstonmatters.org. I want to start here. Last week we learned of an outbreak of canine parvovirus, which prompted Harris County Public Health's animal shelter to temporarily stop volunteer activities and animal surrenders. What is canine parvovirus?
Parvo is a really nasty disease that primarily affects the GI tract in puppies and unvaccinated dogs. Essentially, the lining of the dog's intestinal tract sloughs off, for lack of a better way to describe that. Significant vomiting, diarrhea, frequently bloody. The dogs feel terrible, don't want to eat, dehydrate quickly, and without some kind of intervention can frequently die.
How do they acquire it?
It's a virus, and it is spread through fecal material. So if your dog is out and walks into another dog's bowel movements and then licks its feet, or grossly enough, actually eats the bowel movement, it can contract the parvovirus that way.
what can be done to prevent it from spreading or just to protect your own dog from it?
The best and easiest thing is to vaccinate your dog against parvo. It is a highly effective vaccine. I actually, as a young child, lost a dog to parvo when it first came about in the dog population before vaccines were available. So it is super effective vaccine, and I never ever want to have to go back to the days where we just had a kennel full of dogs vomiting and having bloody diarrhea.
I would think. Is this something that is part of the routine vaccinations that most dogs receive during those early veterinary visits?
It is. It is one of the core vaccines recommended by the American Animal Hospital Association, and you start when your puppy is 6 to 8 weeks old, gets vaccinated every 3 to 4 weeks until it's 16 to 20 weeks old, then at 1 year, and then generally every 3 years after that.
Has the anti-vax movement we've seen among human beings, has that spread to the world of veterinary medicine? Do you see a lot of people saying, I don't want to give my dog shots?
We do. It's not quite as extreme as it is on the human side, but definitely see the impacts on the veterinary side. And it's super unfortunate because so many of these diseases can be easily prevented with vaccine. Some of them, of course, if the pets get them, are potentially fatal or have long-term repercussions, and they're super expensive to treat.
Are there any early signs of indications that your dog might have this?
The first day or two, your dog may be a little bit sluggish or seem off. Appetite may be decreased, may not want to engage in its normal activities, especially when you expect puppies to be sleep hard, play hard, sleep hard, play hard,
right.
Eat, and they're just kind of moping around the house.
Okay, and I guess ultimately the question though is how do you find a distinction between that as a symptom of just a generally lethargic day versus or some other thing that's going on versus though this could be parvo? Right.
And in that first day, you're just going to have to watch. But, if this day or 2 or 3 later, your dog does start with the vomiting or the diarrhea, that's still early enough to intervene and hopefully get your puppy on track to recover.
All right, why don't we dive into some calls and questions? We'll start with Ryan in Cyprus. Ryan, what's your question for Dr. Teller?
Hi, Dr. Teller. Maybe this isn't totally critical like parvo, but I am between houses soon. I'm moving into apartments in June, and I don't have a place yet to find. I haven't found a place for my little cockatiel. And I was wondering if you know anybody who temporarily will watch birds in the area.
Oh, wow. I don't off the top of my head. Of course, there are some actually pet sitting apps, for lack of a better way to describe them. And some of them may temporarily take care of your bird. So if you go online and look at Pet Sitters Houston area, you may be able to find somebody that way. If you have a veterinarian that you're using to provide bird care, they may have some recommendations for you as well. And some veterinary clinics who see birds also do boarding of birds. So depending how long you're looking at, that could be an option for you as well.
All right, thanks very much for that call. Let's go next to Julie in the Galleria area. Julie, what's your question for Dr. Teller?
Hi there. I have been wondering, who do I contact to bring pets over once or twice a month? It says people who are shut-ins, like the CAP or SPCA. Do they realize how this would help people as well as the pets and will allow pets to be
There are several groups around town. Some are affiliated with churches. Meals on Wheels may have something. Some of the schools do it, though, of course, it's summer. And there are multiple organizations. Your best bet may be to Google Therapy Dogs Houston and see which groups may be near you and most appealing to you, because they all service different things, hospitals, nursing homes. shut-ins, those kinds of things, and you can find a group that would work best for you. But thank you for wanting to do that.
And let's go next to Tom in Manville. Tom, what's your question for Dr. Teller?
Hey, I remember reading an article not too long ago about they were in the process of approving some like shot or pill that you would give like an older dog to extend their life. Like, is that approved? Like, where is that in the stages?
Yeah, it's super exciting. Still in the research stages. There are a couple of different organizations working on those, but still going through the FDA-mandated clinical trials. I'm excited. I hope that they do get those approved for me to use with my own dogs. But if you either look up Loyal, which is a company working on one of these drugs, or even better, if you look up the Dog Aging Project, they are doing significant research in all facets of dog aging, including potential medications for longevity. And you can even enroll your dog in one of their studies. May not be a medication study, but they're also tracking aging information in dogs, including lifestyle, environment, nutrition, all of those things. And the more dogs enrolled in the Dog Aging Project, the quicker they can assimilate this information.
Thanks for that call. This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. We're fielding your dog and cat care questions for veterinarian Dr. Lori Teller, and there's still time to call or text 713-440-8870. You can email us at talk@houstonmatters.org. Andrea in the Heights texted us and wants to know if dogs need booties for walking outside. Also, if there is a temperature threshold where it's a must.
This is a great question and very timely because it is so hot outside. And so obviously if you can try to walk your dogs on grass, things like that, early in the morning, late in the evening, all the better. Some of this is going to depend on how sensitive your dog's pads are and how acclimated your dog is to the heat. So there's not one set temperature. But if you put your hand down on the pavement and you feel like you could fry an egg, it would not hurt to put your dogs in booties to walk on that. Pads don't tend to be as sensitive as our bare feet, but if you can barely touch the pavement, then it's certainly worth considering. Or if you notice that your dog is trying to avoid walking on the sidewalk or the asphalt, then definitely look at putting booties on your dog's feet.
The Texas Gulf Coast Red Cross emailed us just in the last 15 minutes to remind us about pets and heat safety, and it's something we wanted to talk about anyway.
Yeah.
Dogs can get heat stroke, right?
Yes.
Cats too.
Yes.
Right?
And it's a problem. And now that we have been breaking records right and left for the past week plus, we're also seeing heat stroke. And so be really aware of your pet's ability to handle the heat. Really young dogs, really old dogs do not tolerate it well. The dogs and the cats with the smushed in face, the brachycephalic breeds like Frenchies and Pugs, they have a much harder time breathing in the heat and humidity. So try to limit their walks. But no dog should be out walking at noon. It is just way too hot. So please, early morning, late evening, make sure your dog has access to water and shade, preferably air conditioning indoors too. And if you notice your dog is wobbly, collapses, its gums are really, really red, heart rate seems to be super high, not responsive, you need to put room temperature or cool water on it, not ice cold, and then seek immediate veterinary attention.
Another text coming in asking, are those fresh dog food brands like Farmer's Dogs recommended? Is dry kibble not good for dogs?
Dry kibble is perfectly fine for dogs, assuming that you're getting it from a well-known name brand company that actually meets the AAFCO AAFCO recommendations for various nutrient levels. Farmer's Dog, Just Food for Pets, some of those are also fine. Do verify that they have a veterinary nutritionist on staff and that they are also meeting the AAFCO labels recommendations.
Rosario's emailed us to say that she has a rescued pure breed female beagle. She was rescued from a puppy mill. 2 owners before us. We adopted her in 2020 because the owner complained she could not potty train her. Initially, she would relieve herself in her kennel and in her bed. She has since been potty trained. We adore her. Her name is BB. Her question is, why does she eat her poop?
First, thank you for adopting BB and getting her potty trained. And a lot of dogs eat poop. It's a disgusting habit. Some of this may come from her early days in a puppy mill. That's also why she wasn't easily potty trained, because she did not have a regular way to relieve herself and had to go in her kennel. Some of this could also be inadequate feeding and looking for nutrition wherever she could get it back in her puppy mill days. And sometimes that may have just come from eating her bowel movements, if nothing else, to alleviate hunger. And it's a really hard habit to break. The best you can do is try to pick up bowel movements right when she has it, and to make sure she's getting great nutrition.
Pedro in Pearland says, I have a blackmouth cur that was diagnosed with arthritis and hip dysplasia. Would you give Liberta or Adequan? What other foods or herbs may alleviate the pain?
So Librela.
Or Librela,
yes, so that's okay. It's not the easiest thing that rolls off the tongue. So first, arthritis is multifactorial, and the treatment is usually multimodal, meaning you need lots of different things. I would definitely do this under the supervision of your veterinarian. Treatment for arthritis generally entails pain medication, usually non-steroidals like meloxicam or carprofen. Adequan is a great adjunct treatment for arthritis. So that too, fish oils. There are actually special diets now made for older dogs with arthritis that seem to work really well. And the fish oil dose is built into that, so you don't need to do that separately. The best thing you can do is make sure your dog is at a lean body weight. And Librela is one of those things that is currently recommended to be used as a last result when the other things just are not working.
Dr. Lori Teller is a veterinarian with the Meyerland Animal Clinic and teaches veterinary medicine at Texas A&M University. If we didn't get to your question today, and it's something that can wait until the next time she joins us on the third Monday of each month, I hope you will text us at 713-440-8870, or you can email that question to us at talk@houstonmatters.org. Dr. Teller, thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Still to come, Hayden Wesneski's out for the season in the latest blow to the Astros pitching staff. Is there a connection between the kinds of pitchers major league teams value and the kinds of injuries they're sustaining? And is it a cycle that can or should be broken? We discuss as Houston Matters continues. The Houston Astros split their series with the Texas Rangers over the weekend, but they may have lost more in the long run with another pitcher lost from the rotation for the rest of the season. Jeff Balke co-hosts the Believe in Astros podcast. Let's talk about it with him now. Jeff, good morning.
Good morning, Craig.
We learned Sunday that Hayden Wesneski is undergoing Tommy John surgery and will not pitch again until at least sometime next year. There were signs in recent starts that something was wrong, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. And if you look back in the last few days when he was, on the IL, but nobody had said anything, there had been some indications that perhaps this was coming.
What are the Astros' options now for the rotation?
Well, I think the one good thing they have is that this is a team that definitely has some depth in their pitching. They've brought up, some young players like Ryan Gusto. I think we're going to see guys like Colton Gordon get opportunities, and Spencer Arrighetti is not that far away from coming back after his fluke broken thumb. So I think they're probably just going to try to hang on. It's a little tough right now because they're in a stretch of games where they're playing a lot of games every single day. And so they're going to try to stick with a 6-man rotation just to help keep guys from getting too tired. But I think once you get Arrighetti back, Gusto's been pretty solid. Colton Gordon was solid in his start. Lance McCullers looked better his last time out, and their bullpen has been outstanding. I think right now they're just going to try and tread water until they can get a couple of guys back.
Tommy John surgery is named for the first Major League pitcher who underwent the procedure and was able to come back and pitch. Essentially, it's a reconstruction or replacement of a torn ligament in the elbow. Why do so many Major League pitchers have to have this procedure?
Well, the elbow takes a tremendous amount of torque when you're throwing a baseball. Your shoulder does too, which is why you have guys that get rotator cuff surgeries as well. But in the case of Tommy John, you've got guys who are really twisting and manipulating their arm in such a way that it snaps that elbow around quite a bit. And that kind of wear and tear on an everyday basis with guys really, these are professionals who've been doing this since they were, kids. And that kind of wear and tear on an elbow, is going to take its toll.
I made mention of it last week. This is another season of too many starters on the shelf for the Stros. Mm-hmm. Maybe not yet as bad as last season, but it sure seems like they're getting close now. Why can't the Astros maintain a healthy rotation?
The same reason most teams can't is that, pitchers are, dropping around Major League Baseball. They have been for a while. It is not uncommon when you look around the league and you see that on a fairly regular basis, you're going to have a guy go out with an injury. You're going to have a guy go out sometimes with a season-ending injury, and it's mostly happening to the pitcher staff. If you look at some of the stories that have been written about it, we are in an era where pitchers are struggling more and more to stay healthy. A lot of that has to do with the max effort that they put out, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that they started doing this max effort when they were 12 and 13 years old. I mean, there are kids getting Tommy John surgery in high school and college. And, that's a reflection of the type of pitching that we're seeing in baseball.
The end result seems to be starters wear down faster. They can't pitch deep into ball games. Clubs then have to tax their bullpens. That leads to more injuries. Any signs out there, maybe a Major League team or two who are considering swinging the pendulum back the other way towards starters who throw fewer pitches per outs, who aren't max effort, spin rate, swing and miss guys so much as pitch to contact guys?
Not really. And the reason for that is because hitters have gotten better over the course of time, just as pitchers have thrown harder. I mean, the reason that this all started is because in baseball, when someone connects with a baseball, there's a far greater chance of that being a problem for you as a defense than there is if the batter does not hit the baseball. So the idea is you have a better chance of succeeding every pitch if a guy doesn't touch it. And so what's happened is you see these in analytics where they're like, yeah, if you can pitch to soft contact, but there's a better chance of you missing your spot and a guy barreling up the baseball. And because so many teams are preaching hitting the ball on a line, hitting the ball with trajectory, you're basically setting yourself up to allow other teams to score more runs. And if you're a pitcher in Major League Baseball and you want to keep your career on track, you want your ERA to be low. There are guys like Framber Valdez who pitch to contact and allow balls hit on the ground. They are the exception in Major League Baseball, not the norm. And I'm not sure I see that changing.
Since we spoke with you last Monday, we learned that baseball's Commissioner Rob Manfred declared any of the figures from Major League Baseball history who had received lifetime bans and had since passed away were no longer on the ineligible list. This paves the way for consideration for the Baseball Hall of Fame, and it would apply to, among others, Shoeless Joe Jackson and Pete Rose. What are the chances we will see them voted into the Hall of Fame in the coming years?
I think with Pete Rose, there's some proximity there simply because there are a lot of guys who are around who watched him play. I also think with him, because he was a manager supposedly when he was, betting on baseball, that there's a little less of an impact there. I'm not sure how much it's going to do for guys. The writers are the baseball writers of America. They can be pretty grudge-holding.
Well, I was going to say it's not necessarily up to the writers, though. It's up to this committee.
Committee, right.
The senior committee or whatever they call it now, and who's on that committee isn't going to be determined for a couple of years because they only do it once every few years.
Right. I think it's still going to be tough because a lot of times it does come from the Writers Association, from other, players, former players and things like that. I'm just not sure exactly what they're going to do. I mean, the truth of the matter is baseball has always struggled to change. I mean, there are people out there who still hate the designated hitter, and that is just going to be a part of baseball, because baseball has been is probably more than any other sport, is a sport that hesitates to make significant changes, although it has made some fairly significant ones over the past, say, 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
But they struggle to do that. And part of that is because of the long tradition of statistical analysis and how they can compare players over time. But with new analytics, that's harder to do. And now when you have, say, okay, these guys gambled on baseball, but they're dead now, so maybe we should put them in. Also, what about guys who, in the PED era, who were clearly Hall of Famers before they started using? What about the players who clearly used amphetamines and other things like that back in the day? Do we ignore that as we have for so many years? It's complicated, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to fix it with one brief stroke.
And I guess I should say the process itself is complicated, and you are right that it does involve the writers even putting some names up for a nomination for consideration by that committee, and so there are lots of steps and not a lot of choices to vote for. So it could be a while yet for the Pete Roses of the world. Jeff Balke co-hosts the Believe in Astros podcast. Jeff, thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig.
And that'll do it for today's show. The Houston Matters team includes Michael Haggerty, Joshua Zinn, Brenda Valdivia, Mincho Jacob, and Laura Walker. Jared Carroll's our technical director. I'm Craig Cohen. Join us tomorrow for more Houston Matters.